Hello and welcome to another episode of the Eurogamer newscast. It is Friday, 16th of April, 2021. My name is Wesley. I'm editor of Eurogamer and I'm joined by Tom, Eurogamer's news editor. Say hello, Tom.
Hello there.
And Eurogamer reporter Emma Kent. Say hello, Emma.
Hello.
Lots to talk about this week, as usual. Lots of things happening with PlayStation, with Cyberpunk, with Nintendo, with all sorts. But before we get into all that, it is tradition for us to do our little what we've been playing catch up. I'll start with you, Tom. What have you been playing this week?
You'd think after so many months of doing this that I would remember this always comes first and I would have
You didn't think about this bit, did you?
What I was going to say. Well, there's so much else going on, Wes. You know, there's such a busy week. I mean, really briefly, what have I been playing that's not out of the ordinary?
If you've not been playing anything other than the stuff that you always play, that's okay. That's how normal people play games, you know. They just have a few games and that's it.
Yeah, and so many games nowadays demand all of your time to get through them.
Yeah.
You don't have to try and look cool
Fortnite
every week by being, I played this other thing on Game Pass that no one's ever played.
No, I know, but you know, that would also be useful to my job rather than just playing Fortnite and Pokemon Go non-stop, which is what I actually do. And I'm very happy to admit that. One thing that Pokemon Go added this week is there's a thing in the game at the moment where you can see how many raids that everyone on your friends list has done, and like that is a thing which you can do one a day for free or you pay for more. And I feel very good about my Pokemon Go usage now, having seen this counter for everyone on my friends list, because I'm like down here having done like a couple of raids that I paid for this week because there's a new thing to go get. But there are people on my friends list who are clearly spending, like, I've actually thought about maybe messaging them and being like,
have an intervention.
You're all right, man. You cool, because there's a lot that these numbers are telling me about.
If Tom does your Pokemon Go intervention, then you know you've got
in a
problems.
bad place.
They're
all just enabling each other, honestly.
I mean, I don't want to go too deep down the rabbit hole on this, but this is exactly what this feature is doing, because now people in my community are being like, oh, well, yeah, I mean, I would quite like my number to be a bit higher versus everyone else. And everyone is just sort of egging each other on.
That's disgraceful.
Disgusting.
I mean, we used to do that in World of Warcraft back in the day, where because you could there was a command you could type in to find out how much you played. In the end, we stopped doing it because, I mean, at one point it told me how much I played in terms of years rather than months or days. So I was like, okay, time to stop. Anyway, Emma, what have you been
can you guess?
Valheim?
It's getting really embarrassing now. Every week.
We are the normal ones, okay? Because I hear this, like, oh, you know, you should play different things all the time and all. Like, normal people can't do that. It's just impossible. You know, you play.
And to be fair, there's not a huge amount of releases out right now, so I'm just getting really into this one thing. I have been experimenting with modding a bit more in Valheim this week. So there was a mod that like introduces like Skyrim style spells for it. So I was just kind of throwing fireballs at some lizards. So that was good.
Sounds like and
people are building Skyrim in the game. So you could like basically you're playing Skyrim as Valheim, turning Valheim into Skyrim, it sounds like.
Basically. Mod's even called Skyheim, so I felt like that was deliberate.
Wow. How do they come up with this stuff? I remember last time we spoke, your group was gonna take on the final boss.
Oh yeah, we haven't gotten to that stage yet. We found where the final boss is just by fluke. We were just sailing past and we're like, what's that? And it's just a big old claw in the plains, and we're like, I think that might be it. But it's a really hard biome to master. We're just kind of, before you get up to defeating a boss, you got to do loads of prep work and get like the gear you need for it. So we're basically doing that, and at the moment we're just like baking bread. It's very important to have a lot of bread for this boss fight.
Okay, well, I have been playing Outriders. Still, I finished it like literally two nights ago. The campaign, that is. So I'm ready for endgame. I'm not sure if I'm gonna go too big into the end game just because there's this really worrying inventory wipe bug that it seems to be more prevalent for people who get stuck into multiplayer, and really end game you want to be playing with other people as opposed to your set on your own. So I'd be looking to matchmake, and if that struck me, I'd just be so gutted. And I'm on the low end of, like, there are some people who've had this after putting nearly 100 hours into this game. Everything's gone. They log in, their character is naked, save for some pants. And they're like, what? Where's all
the game
my
is
stuff?
just staging an intervention, Wes.
Yeah, maybe Tom had a look and was like, right, yeah, can you imagine? And the developers have said, we're going to do this big mass item restoration event. Like, it's fucking the circus has come to town. Get all our stuff back, and it's going to be in one fell swoop where they just give everything their stuff back. But the problem is that people, they call it the god roll grind in this game. It's not just this game. Lots of looter games or MMOs have the god roll grind, where you're not just looking for a certain item, a weapon or a piece of armor. You're looking for that with the god roll on it, what makes it the best version. And the way the game works is, it's actually the best thing about the game is the way that you can mod the different items you get and tweak them, and that's the grind, finding these god rolls and modding them to get the best possible build. And some people have spent a lot of time doing that. That's the real grind in this game. And they've said that they can't guarantee that the items will be restored in the way that they were when they were lost, suggesting that they will be the way they were when they first got them, before they modded them to make them, the best they could be. So even if this restoration event works, and I'm not sure it will, because this game is not working properly from day one, it could still, like, fuck everyone. It's just crazy.
God, that whole thing's given me flashbacks to when I was younger. I bought a slightly dodgy Game Boy cartridge of, like, Pokemon Sapphire, played the full game on it, and then tried to migrate my Pokemon across. And on doing that, it just deleted the entire game. And it was just the most devastating feeling ever. So I completely understand how that must feel for people to just lose all your progress. It's just like, I think I just kind of curled up in a corner and moved for a while.
What else can you do?
Yeah, I know.
Tom, how would you feel if Niantic just turned all your shit off in Pokemon Go and you were like, baby trainer? Sorry, Tom, just gone. I don't know what happened to it.
There have been nightmare scenarios for players who, the game is now 5 years coming up on. That's an awful lot of time that people have spent. Basically 5 years of their life grinding. People have traveled all the way around the world finding these things.
God, yeah, with Pokemon Go, it's not just you sat at a computer and putting time in, is it?
It's also and it's the money as well. Like, just going back to that raid thing very briefly, and you talking about god rolls made me think, well, that's what people do when they're raiding. Like, raids are for a specific Pokemon, but people do it again and again and again because they want that specific Pokemon with the best stats. So yeah, I mean, I don't even want to know how many minutes I put into that, hours, years of my life.
Yeah. / time played, and it tells, when the game tells you in terms of years, you got problems. Anyway, let's move on to some news. I'm going to start with PS5 just because I feel like it's in, like, next gen gaming news. It's definitely up there for the stuff this week. I don't think we were expecting this, but people had started to wonder what the hell was going on with PS5. It's been out for like 4 months now, 5 months, and it hasn't had a big update or anything. But this week we finally got an update, and the headline feature has to be that it finally lets you move games to USB storage. Now, when your big update that comes nearly half a year after your console comes out is that PS5 did not launch proper, like, finished. I'm sorry, it was not ready to launch. And this was a real big problem because the hard drive is not big. We've covered this loads. We talked about it before. My PS5 is full, and all I've got is Call of Duty on it and Outriders.
One Call of Duty, is it?
I've got the 3 Call of Duties going on it, and I've just about squeezed Outriders in. And it's full, which is a terrible situation.
Yeah, it's the start of the generation.
It's just it's bad. So thankfully now I can finally transfer my stuff, and this is great. This is like all of a sudden opened up a world of possibility to me on my PS5, because I've got instant access to all the games really. Whereas before, you know, and you'll be like, oh, I can't be bothered to download that, you know, even if I own it. It's just 50 gig, but it'll probably I just want to play something now. Now I can put Cyberpunk on a hard drive, put Spider-Man on a hard drive, put FIFA on a hard drive or whatever, and then I just transfer them across. I've been doing this. It takes a few minutes. Like it's not very quick, I would say, but it's better than downloading 100 gig of a game, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, so, yeah, saves your data if you're paying, if you're not uncapped, and saves the planet in terms of like how long your console has to be on connected to the internet downloading it.
Yeah, it's I cannot believe the PS5 launched without this. There's some other things that emerged as well, which I haven't really got stuck into, but are definitely welcome. So it will now automatically switch off HDR features when the console detects non-HDR content. Again, you would have thought that would have been a launch feature. And now 120 hertz support for 1080p PC monitors is now supported, and that's pretty good. That's me right now. I'm playing it on a monitor, so that's good. And there's cross-generation SharePlay, which is pretty neat, but I haven't tested it. There's some stuff that people still really want for their PS5 that is still not with the console. There's still no word on when the PS5 will support solid state drives, SSDs. It's middle of April, and that is still not a thing. Like, what the hell is going on? Like, how can that not have happened yet? I just want to expand my PlayStation's hard drive, for fuck's sake.
I mean, you know, welcome to 2020, Wes. It's nice of you PlayStation people to join us. #Xbot. But, you know,
2021, Tom.
Well, not if you're on Xbox. That was the point. It was a bad joke. No, don't worry about it. 2022. Yeah, I'm sure Sony will have sorted out its SSDs by then.
2022. Yeah. So the PS5 has got a long way to go still. I'm glad this has happened. Still a long way to go. I was going to ask you two, as Xbox Series X and S owners, I don't have either. Is there any sort of like glaring omission like that with those consoles? Or are you both pretty comfortable with where it's at the moment? Is there anything that you want to see them add sooner rather than later? Or is there anything you're seeing people clamoring for in the same way that people were with the PS5?
It's a very stable platform. I mean, the next thing really is dropping Xbox Live Gold requirement for free-to-play games, but they're doing that, and that's in testing right now, and it's happening, so it'll be public within a matter of weeks. There was something I remember in the update. I was like, you know what? Xbox doesn't have that.
What, in the PlayStation one?
Yeah, I'm just gonna browse it now.
Wow. Okay. Well, while you're browsing, I don't know why this happens with the developers and publishers and game companies, but they don't put everything in the patch notes. Like, just put everything in the patch notes so people find stuff. Like, there've been reports that this update sorts out this super loud disc spinning sound that some people were getting.
I guess maybe they're worried that, you know, that would be kind of like retrospective bad PR that it happened in the first place and had to fix it. Maybe they don't want to highlight it.
Maybe, but I feel like patch notes should be comprehensive in all circumstances. Like, Call of Duty is really bad for this. The patch notes are crap. They don't tell you half the stuff that goes on in Call of Duty patches. And when they tell you something has been nerfed or buffed, they tell you in very vague terms, like this aspect of it has been improved or worsened. And then there are certain people in the Call of Duty community who then get a lot of attention, and just because they work out what's been changed, because the developers don't say.
One reason that they stopped doing it on Fortnite is because when they gave granular detail like that, people would just put it in like YouTube videos and be like 90% nerf for the shotgun, and then Fortnite's community, but
they did it in the game.
It was a protection thing because Fortnite's community managers were being harassed, and for a while Fortnite was just like, you know what, we're just not going to give out patch notes anymore.
Wow, I hadn't considered the harassment angle.
They don't need the
it's just extra fuel for it,
basically. And they don't need the publicity, so you know who gains from putting out patch notes?
Me, mate. I would gain it from it because I'm into that stuff in Call of Duty. I want to know how much the ADS has slowed down on a rifle that I use.
But as you say, the nerds who really care about stuff will find out about it. And then there's a section of people above nerds who just like are looking for ammo, like who don't care about it because they want to adjust their play style, who are looking for ammo for YouTube headlines. And like if you're not putting out in patch notes, it's like that makes that much harder for them to just fire off a hate video.
Sad situation when it comes to that.
Yeah, it was the
console though, like a console.
Definitely,
features.
Surely.
even worse.
Yeah, you had a console wars west.
Xbox can't preload game patches, which you know is interesting. I wonder if that's something
you can do that on PlayStation. Yeah.
I wonder if that's something to do with the fact that on PlayStation, you know, they do allow you to segregate parts of a game, mission like campaign mode, multiplayer mode.
It's not that because you can do it on PS4.
And I don't.
You can't segregate. It doesn't have the activities on PS4. You can't chop up games like that. I know that this has been a long-standing thing with Call of Duty, where you can pre-download the updates on PS4 and PS5, but you can't do it on Xbox, which has always been a thing. And you can't do it on PC either. It's just PlayStation. It's super weird. Okay, well, let's move on to Nintendo. From Sony to Nintendo. Nintendo this week had another Indie Direct. They're not called that, but they're Nintendo Indie Directs, where they announced a whole host of indie games coming to Nintendo Switch. I think it's worth running through what was shown. But I'm going to start with Fez, because Fez is wicked. Fez is brilliant. I'm not a big indie game fan, right? There's like 5 indie games that I think are good, and all the rest aren't. That's what I've said, and I'm sticking with that. But Fez is in there, and out of the blue, I haven't heard of peep out of Fez for years. The developer, nothing. The original creator of it, walked away from gaming, and then all of a sudden, Fez on Nintendo Switch, absolutely brilliant. And what's great about this is there's a whole community of people on Switch who've never played Fez before, who are experiencing it for the first time. And there's loads of amazing mysteries and weirdness with that game that they'll all come together to try and work out, just as we did when it came out on Xbox Live Arcade back in 2013, I want to say. Something like this.
And they'll all come together and say, wouldn't it be nice if there was a Fez 2? And they'll all collectively have the same disappointment.
They'll go, well, why wasn't there another one of these? Okay.
Yeah. Shock, it was the internet.
Yeah. Emma, do you know the backstory of Fez?
I haven't played it.
This was before Emma was born.
Fez was Eurogamer's. Let me work it out.
I know that there are a lot of like Fez posters around the office, so I feel like this might be a clue.
Fez was Eurogamer's Game of the Year, the year it came out, which was, I'm not sure, 2013. It's got to be. I think it was, and it. I think Ollie's review of it, this was before we ditched review scores, was 10 out of 10. So it's an essential, what would be an essential now. And it's just an incredible game. Ollie's review is absolutely brilliant. It's definitely one of the best reviews you've ever published on the site. I love it. April 13th, 2012 is when it came out on Xbox 360. So It's like 9 years old. God, 9 years old. That's depressing. This happens to me all the time.
I could just hear that in your head.
It's happening again.
Like you can just see the moment where his heart goes.
Yeah. And the thing about Fez is, it's a perspective changing game. So you can shift the camera around the world, and the whole sort of like gameplay is based on being able to do that. Incredible game, loads of mystery, unsolved puzzles, secrets, weirdness. One of those games where you want a pen and paper to write things down. And it was at the time, you know, people on the internet were coming together more, and it was perfect timing because people were like trying to work things out together online, and it was really, really brilliant. It was created by a indie developer called Phil Fish, and Phil Fish was I met him a couple of times. Was definitely like outspoken. I would say he's outspoken. Is fair. This game was a labour of love. Like he built it almost on his own for years. It's incredible to look at and think one person basically built this game. I mean, he did have some help, but it's essentially his baby. And he said some things in public that, you know, didn't go down very well, I think it's fair to say, and have sort of dogged him over the years. This has become the Fez newscast, hasn't it? And he was getting harassed. He was getting harassed online, and all sorts of other things that were being said about him. And he eventually had enough, and he said in a statement online, I think it was a tweet, I've had enough. I'm cancelling Fez 2. This hadn't even been announced. I'm cancelling Fez 2. You've won. Well done. I'm off. And he's never been heard of since. That's it. Gone. Phil Fish is
vanished.
So and he made lots of money out of Fez. It was an monster hit.
It still will, by the sounds of it. It's coming out on Switch.
Yeah, but yeah, so it's like one of those like made one of the greatest games of all time jobs, and then just vanished. It's pretty crazy. Anyway, there was other stuff in the Nintendo Indie Showcase other than Fez. Tom, what else was in there? Because all I've got in my head right now is I can only see Fez.
I think that was the one thing that you were excited about the night before last. Yeah, I really loved Oxenfree. I thought it was a great little game that came out 5 years ago. That's a while ago now. From an indie studio called Night School Studio, and I don't think anyone really expected them to do another one, but it's had this cult status now for a few years, and it's a brilliant narrative heavy indie game where you walk around an island. You're a bunch of teenagers just hanging out, getting drunk, and then creepy things start to happen. Some really nice branching narrative paths, and it's very atmospheric. It's an amazing soundtrack. You find radio signals coming through dimensional portals, and the audio does really cool stuff with that. Anyway, they're making a sequel, which is incredible. It's out this year for Switch. It's coming to other platforms as well. Steam's been confirmed so far. People didn't think they were going to do it because they'd gone off and started doing other bits and pieces, but people really wanted them to do it. So when that popped up right at the end, everyone was very pumped. It ended the whole thing on a good note. There were lots of other things too. There were a couple of Annapurna games. There was Ollie Ollie World, which should be called Ollie Ollie Ollie, Oi Oi Oi, but it's not.
Why isn't it? That definitely should be called that.
People love that game. Martin's written a brilliant piece about it. You can go read on Eurogamer right now. It was a good show. It was 20 minutes and it didn't lag at any point. It really shows what an incredible lineup Switch has this year of indie support. I can't wait for Oxenfree. It's going to be good.
I mean, the fact that it's got Fez, it doesn't really need any other games.
And it's got Fez, yeah. Sure.
Emma, did anything take your fancy?
There was a Kiwi game. And I'm just like, I like the Kiwi.
That was cute.
Yeah.
I watched it and I have no idea what you're talking about.
It's a bird.
Like a bird. It's like a New Zealand.
Oh, but all right. Okay.
It's a flightless bird.
Not a fruit.
No, I'd be less excited about that.
I was like, well, what was that one?
Yeah, I think I saw something about the Kiwi game a while back, so I'm glad that it's had a little update and be coming out soon. Yeah.
Right, Fez, Oxenfree, and the Kiwi game. There are picks. Sounds like picking horses for the Grand National. Okay, so let's move on to Resident Evil. Capcom had a showcase late last night where they talked about a bunch of new Resident Evil stuff. Resident Evil Village is obviously the big draw. It's coming out soon, quite soon actually. It's creeping up on us. And I've got such high hopes for this game. Oh my god, I cannot wait. But there's some other stuff announced to do with Resident Evil in it as well. Tom, you have reported on this showcase. What were the headlines?
The headlines were, firstly, an incredibly complicated demo schedule for Resident Evil Village over the next 4 weeks now until the game comes out. And 3 of those are going to have demo weekends where some people are going to be able to play for some amount of time. And it really did feel like a lot of the 20 minutes of the showcase last night were spent explaining exactly who, how, and when this will actually happen. The main thing is that there's going to be an hour-long demo for people to play in about 3 weeks' time. Details are all on Eurogamer. That's every single platform, which if you don't have a PlayStation 5 right now, it's going to be the first time that you're, or PlayStation 4, sorry. It's going to be the first time that you're actually going to be able to demo the game, because until now, Capcom has been PlayStation exclusive with its demos, and PlayStation people again get early access to this stuff over the next couple of weeks. Yeah, I'm very jealous. I'm not a fan of this time gating of
no, it is bullshit,
promotional bullshit, but yeah, that's what's happening. I'm not even going to try and remember exactly the dates and when, because it's a mess, but that's happening over the next few weeks. The other stuff they talked about, well, we got an announcement of Resident Evil 4 VR for Oculus 2, not Oculus
Quest
2, Oculus Quest 2. This is all Ian's corner. It moves the game to first person, and that's quite cool. It's odd now because that's the style of Resident Evil 7 and Village. They've even remade Resi 4's iconic inventory in 3D, so you can, like, your disembodied hands can literally pick up stuff and put it into the inventory Tetris minigame that people love. That's coming out later this year. There's going to be a bit more news on that soon. They also talked about the Netflix CGI series that's coming, which is kind of a sequel to Resident Evil 4, set a couple of years later. That has Leon and Ashley Graham's dad as the president. And they very briefly mentioned Resident Evil : Reverse, which is that weird multiplayer thing that you get free if you buy Village, but just to say it's still coming and we're not really sure what we're going to do with it because it's just a thing.
Do you know what happened with that? Yeah, they put an open beta, and then it was so shit. A few hours later, they took it offline.
Yeah,
and it's not come back.
Another unreleased. Quite a rare one.
Yeah, and so no more information on that. And they showed Village's Mercenaries mode, which is a thing that a lot of Resident Evil games have, time attack thing. Village looks incredible.
Yeah, it does. It really does.
You know, there were some expectations that Capcom might talk about like a brand new another Resident Evil game coming out later in the year. There's bits and pieces on what that might be from the leaks that Capcom suffered earlier a few months back. So yeah, there was some thought that they might show that, but they didn't. And I guess that makes sense because all of their marketing right now has to be Village, play it on this weekend, and anything else is a bit of a distraction.
A couple weekends ago, I reported on Village's photo mode 7 didn't have one, so it was notable. But let's be honest, you know, I didn't report on it for that reason, did I? I reported on it because I dread to think, my friends, what people are going to do with that photo mode in that game. Dread, and by dread I mean I cannot wait.
Capcom made jokes about it last night, you know, like the demo doesn't include tea time with Lady Dimitrescu. They pronounced her name weirdly on the stream. I don't know if that's the official pronunciation. See, I can't even pronounce pronunciation.
She's the tall vampire lady, Tom, if you need some help.
Let's just call her that.
Any of this piquing your interest, Emma?
No, I'm not a horror games person really. Apart from like Little Nightmares, is about the most I can do. I think Resident Evil will be something I kind of watch other people get scared at. I find watching other people playing it when it's me. Just get freaked out.
Oh, I love it. The Maiden. I mean, there's nothing I can say about Resident Evil Village that would change your mind if that's how you feel about horror games. The Maiden demo that I played on PS5. Holy shit, we talked about this. The Resident Evil 4 VR thing, very briefly, I think is interesting because it does things to Resident Evil 4, which is an old game, and we're all expecting a remake, aren't we? So do you think that, Tom, do you think that this is sort of like laying the groundwork for what that might be in some shape or form? Could we expect a perspective shift or a perspective option for that game?
That's interesting because Resi 2 remake and 3 did not do that. No. They kept to the originals.
But they never got VR modes either.
No. I would, if I had to guess, I would say that Resi 4 won't be first person because so far they've kept to making the games look current, but keeping the gameplay similar to how it was back in the day. And I think that that is one of the reasons that people really love Resident Evil 4, and it would be odd for them to change that now at this point when they've got the kind of current Resident Evil games that they're releasing in first person and then the retro ones that they're remaking, and I would imagine they would stick to that same track.
Right, let's move on to Cyberpunk, because there's been a lot of Cyberpunk stuff happening recently, and I remain fascinated by that project, that developer, as well as personally interested in the game since I did actually finish it and I want to know what's going on with it. Emma, you've been reporting on Cyberpunk lately. There's some cool stories that you've done on the site now to do with the various things that are in the game that are teasing what's coming next. They recently put out a patch. When this patch emerged and we were talking about it, you highlighted the fact that it stops police spawning behind players' backs on roofs, which I thought was hilarious. You said that you'd seen some of this in action.
There were some clips of, because after I think patch 1.2, which was the mega one at the end of March, which was supposed to tackle the police and stuff like that, people were like, hey, they're still spawning behind me when I'm on a roof. So people would do a crime from like miles away, like sniping, and then I'd turn around and there'd be two policemen there, like. And I was like, oh, that's not fair.
That's brilliant. That is really good.
So I think that's what that's supposed to tackle. But very amusing, some of the bugs that are being fixed in it.
There's a whole heap of stuff that this latest patch that went out this week tackles, but it's very much about bug fixing, and it's about fixing progression blocks. And anyone who's played Cyberpunk knows it's got full of progression blocks. I finished it, but I ran into some progression blocks. There were some quests I simply couldn't finish because there were bugs.
Yeah, there was one quest where I was like trying to help someone who's like a net runner who's stuck in a chair get out of the chair, and I just could not do anything. I felt terrible. I was like, I have to just leave the room with this woman like locked into this chair being like, help me on the screen, and I'm like, oh, I can't do anything.
Oh no.
It's a real cyberpunk nightmare. Yeah, that's the most dystopian it got.
I had a similar one where it was just an innocent mission, but I was trying to clear the map. You know, you get that thing where you just want to clear the map of all of the crap that they put on for your objectives, and it was the last one in that area, but the person I had to basically drag out of the building was stuck under the floor, and I tried everything everything. I was trying to rip the place to shreds. I was trying to get under it, like nothing worked. And I even like reloaded an old save that actually put a few hours back on what I had to play to get there, thinking that would help, and it didn't. I just had to leave the person stuck in the floor.
Yeah, so I think on PC, some modders have created a way for you to kind of like reset a quest if it gets stuck. So maybe that would tackle it. But obviously, like if you're playing on PlayStation, then
oh my god,
you're just stuck.
Modders to the rescue.
Yeah, seriously.
Sounds like a real flaw in the game.
Wow. Well done, Tom.
Thanks. That's my contribution to this segment.
You had your Resident Evil bit. Now we're talking about Cyberpunk, okay? Talking of modders doing good things, you've been speaking with someone who's data mined the game post the latest patch and has found some interesting stuff. Emma, what have you found? What have they found?
Yeah, so basically 1.2 was like the big one, which added a whole load of publicly disclosed fixes and improvements to the game. But people who are in the modding community noticed that there are a lot of files moving around and being added in that like weren't talked about. And quite a lot of them had this like story episode 1 tag. And apparently that's been in a couple of the file names since the game was launched. But then like the hits went from 5 from the original release to like 220 after that patch. And a lot of them are specifically like quest descriptions and like objectives for going through quests, so you can like figure out what's going on in the quest from the objectives that are listed. So from that we can kind of see that there's some quests from like the Pacifica area which probably didn't make it into the main game but are now being put in as part of free DLC, is what we kind of suspect, and that like the episode 1 refers to like the first batch of free DLC, which is what's supposed to be next on the roadmap. So there's something about like a character called like Anderson that you have to like go rescue from the scavengers gang, which I think is another gang that some people felt that you didn't see much apart from like the first mission. So I think a lot of this free DLC is going to be, you know, putting in content that didn't quite make it at release.
That is good intel.
Yeah. Oh, and along with that as well, it's a lot of it is kind of adding more dialogue and existing stuff to, you know, the storylines that are there already. So it's like fleshing out romances. So there's some conversations between V and Panam over text and stuff like that to kind of, you know, add more to what is already there.
And there's some hints that Mr. Hand,
yeah.
Mr. Hands might
Mr.
be
Hands
a bit
exactly.
fleshed out a bit.
But yeah, I think
the shake, it's the Tom head shake. It's like, it just makes me feel like I've said something really, really terrible, even when it's not that bad. Just
nailed it.
Oh.
So anyway, yeah, at launch, a lot of people said that they felt the Pacifica area in particular felt a lot quieter than the other areas. If you're thinking about like Kabuki and how many quests there are there and how alive it feels compared to Pacifica, where like half of the area you can't even get to it, and like Mr. Hands barely gives you any gigs. It seems likely that a lot of the new quests are going to be for like Mr. Hands and Pacifica, because looking through the ones that got added, like 2 or 3 of them were Mr. Hands given objectives and stuff like that.
Why is Mr. Hands called Mr. Hands?
Okay, there's a reason, which is that when you see him in the game, he's like, you can't see his face, so you can just see his hands. And I think that's it. It's just a very mysterious, shadowy figure.
Believe it or not,
does he have
Mr.
a hand
Hands
for a head?
Is
that his body modification?
Yeah, and he's got eyes in his hand,
like the monster from Pan's Labyrinth.
Yes, Pan's Labyrinth, Mr. Hands Labyrinth. No, he's not like that, but he is one of the most mysterious characters in the game, and just sort of spies on you a bit. It's kind of creepy, and people want to know what's going on with him. Hopefully, this fleshes it out. Not to labour too much in Cyberpunk, but this week, the boss of CD Projekt, or the co-boss of CD Projekt, Adam Kaczynski, gave an interview to Reuters, and one of the quotes from that interview has been picked up, and we did report on it because I felt it was important. This is what he said: "I don't see an option to shelve Cyberpunk 2077. We are convinced that we can bring the game to such a state that we can be proud of it and therefore successfully sell it for years to come." Now, predictions. Do you think that is going to happen? What he's saying is they're going to sort it out, and it's going to become like a Witcher style game that just keeps selling for years and years and years. Witcher is still selling now, 6 years later. That's basically what he's saying. Is that possible, or is he just deluded?
I mean, they're going to have to go all in if they want to do this. They've really got to turn around public opinion. You can't kind of, I don't know, just patch up the bugs and then be like, ta-da, it's done. I think that would be enough to get it back on the store, but would it prompt people to go and buy it again? Probably not. You'd have to have almost like a No Man's Sky relaunch of it. Yeah, I guess we'll see how it goes. Maybe they'll try doing that and then realize that maybe it's not worth it and stop. But I'd like to see it, given more attention and get closer to what they actually wanted it to be. But I guess it's time that they could spend making another game and potentially get more money for that.
Yeah, I've seen people say online, just, get it to where it needs to be, where you're basically not getting sued and Sony will sell it and then walk away. But based on that comment, they're not. They're going to try and make a success of it.
Really interesting to hear them talk about the multiplayer aspect of it a couple of weeks ago. I think we talked about it on here before, but the fact that it won't be standalone anymore, multiplayer side, and I think that they will use that as like the Trojan horse to continue building on Cyberpunk and encouraging people to it and encouraging people back if they got it at launch and lapsed. Like as a single player game, I really think that they will struggle turning it into the kind of long-term, really long tales success story that Witcher 3 is, where you can buy 80 hours of really very enjoyable adventuring now for like 12 quid whenever it goes on sale with all of the expansions included. I don't think Cyberpunk is going to get there because it's got such an uphill battle in terms of public perception on what the game is. I think it went further than this game looks crap and it's buggy. I think like it actually damaged the perception of the brand and the excitement that people had to be in that world.
Yeah, definitely.
So what they need to do is not just get it to there where it should have been at launch, but build, bring in the multiplayer that would have been standalone, use that as a way to get people back into the world of Cyberpunk, keep building on it, keep adding to it. Be generous. I think that they will be with the stuff that they're bringing out, because they were really clear when they did that briefing recently, like Witcher and Cyberpunk are their two franchises, they're massive IPs that they want to continue developing long term. And if they just get it to this point and then move on with Cyberpunk, then I think people won't turn up for Cyberpunk 2 or whenever that ever comes out. They need to like really do what they need to. Yeah, they need to win people back and work hard at it.
It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Okay, let's move on to Mass Effect. Now, BioWare put out a Mass Effect Legendary Edition visual changes trailer this week, which I watched. I'm sure you did, Tom, and I thought it was fascinating. And it's also fascinating to see the reaction to this, because I would say that there's been a mixed reaction. I've seen some people talk about how they think that the game has lost something, especially the first one. Let's talk about that. So, Tom, I'm interested in what you think of the changes to the visuals and how you would describe them, because I think the description of them is interesting, seeing it come from different people.
Yeah. Personally, my reaction is a lot more mixed, and I think generally the reaction is a lot more mixed than when we first saw the Legendary Edition, and it focused on different things. This trailer this week was very Mass Effect 1 heavy, because that's where they've done most of the changes in terms of how the game just looks and plays, because it's the most dated of the lot. I think the environments generally, on balance, look night and day better. There's some really extensive work done on a lot of the planets to make them to bring them up to the quality of Mass Effect 3, which was the same console generation, but like towards the end of it, and it was so much more advanced. In terms of the character models, some of them in some situations have suffered a bit, because in your mind's eye, when you're playing Mass Effect 1, and even when you're looking at the footage side by side, when you can't see detail because the scene is really dark, sometimes deliberately so, because, you know, like some bits of Mass Effect 1 now, the original Mass Effect 1 still look great, but it's also because it's a really dark, film grainy thing that's supposed to be atmospheric, but also kind of cover over the fact that these are really early Xbox 360 graphics, and they were doing the best that they could in a lot of cases. Yeah, I definitely see where the mixed reaction is coming from, and I think that the character models in particular, which have been homogenized to some degree across the trilogy, do stand out in Mass Effect 1 now. I don't like the Mass Effect 1 Shepard, the female Shepard that they've brought in, which is a kind of, it's the Mass Effect 3 female Shepard, but they have made her younger while trying to keep her appearance more consistent across the trilogy. That she to me just seems out of place. But then I'm a diehard fan, and any change I'm going to scrutinize and say, well, is this better? Is this not? We saw this video when the press got their reveal of the Legendary Edition back when it was announced publicly. And BioWare actually talked through it and gave more context. And at the time, I did wonder if they were going to release this more widely. And now they have done, but they didn't include a lot of the context that they did when we saw it. And like a lot of the stuff was, there were like some of the areas of the game were just way too dark. And on current TVs now, especially, it just wouldn't look great at all. If you had a dark-skinned Commander Shepard, especially, massive issues there. Like at some parts of the game, like you would struggle to see your character. So they relit a lot of stuff. You can make the argument that this is a trailer of parts of the game that BioWare's handpicked, and they didn't always do a great job of showing the game, I think, in like the best light. But it's an accurate picture, I think. Like there are some moments where it just looks a little odd because you are used to seeing something and it's being presented now in a way where things have been tweaked, and people will say, you know, actually I preferred it when it was a bit blurry and film grainy. And yeah,
that was an answer. Thanks for that, Tom. I appreciate it.
I think in general it's better. I agree with people saying in some instances they prefer the original.
For me, I think there's something about the atmosphere that feels a bit off. And I think a lot of that is tied into what I remember of Mass Effect 1, which probably isn't the reality anymore because it was a long time ago. And the film grain effect, which I think worked brilliantly on Xbox 360 in 2007. But, you know, causes all sorts of problems now. Like people would just turn it off immediately now, wouldn't they? Whereas back then I played it with it, and it added a sort of like texture to the game that I think in the remaking of it is some of it looks a bit lost. And you do kind of see, it's like that thing, you know, like where you see something clearly for the first time and you kind of wish you hadn't. And I've seen this happen with a lot of games that have been remade where, you know, think when you actually look at things properly, it was not as good as you remember them to be. I'm definitely still going to play it. I mean, this isn't going to put me off, but I think Mass Effect 1 is going to be the most divisive part of this collection. Not just because of the way it looks. I think there's going to be other stuff that will have changed as well. So yeah, Emma, I'm guessing you're not going to play this game.
Probably not. I don't know. I haven't played any of the Mass Effects.
Yeah,
maybe I should.
I mean, you should. I think they're fantastic. Yeah. They're obviously brilliant, but they're not. It's not a thing that you can just dip into. It's like if you wanted to play it, you have to really. Yeah, it's all in on story.
It's like each game is like a full American season of a TV show, like 22 episodes. That's what it feels like. And so you've got 3 of those. They're chunky games.
Are you gonna play the whole thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
All the way.
Yeah, I can't wait.
That is a lot of time, That's probably for you as well, knowing you.
It could finally be something other than Fortnite and Pokemon Go, at least.
Yeah. No, day one, I'll absolutely start.
I'm going to be there day one, but I don't know how far I'm going to get before I stop. Because there'll be a novelty to it, and then they'll be like, well, do I want to do this again? I did it before.
I've had that itch for a while, and I've actually been putting it off. Like during lockdown last year, I considered it, and back then the remaster was sort of being talked about, and there was some expectation that it would arrive last November for N7 Day, and actually there was some that it was going to be arriving before now, and I held it off. So I've been actually waiting for it for a while.
On that note, actually, I know that a lot of people have been this is across all media, but like going back to stuff that they know really well. It's almost like a comfort thing during lockdown. It's like comfort food, going back to things you enjoyed in the past. And so I can see how that would be really good for some people right now. I'm going to really enjoy that. I've been going back to New Vegas all the time. So that's been my little comfort thing. Yeah, no, well, also because it's on, I've got my Series S and I've been playing it on there. So I've been tinkering around with it on Game Pass.
So you're getting stuck into New Vegas again now?
Yeah.
How far in are you?
Oh, I went to visit Nipton again, which is like one of my favourite areas in the game because of the whole lottery bit. Yeah.
Oh, man.
We got the nostalgia going. So you'll be you next.
There's a lot of older games that have been getting attention lately that I've been thinking, do I want to play that game? Because we were talking about this earlier before this, but KOTOR was in the news again for because it was trending on Twitter, and just when people are talking about KOTOR, whenever I see it, always bubbles up every now and again. I always think, oh God, I want to play that game again. I loved it so much, absolutely loved it so much. It's not aged very well. I did actually a few years ago go back to try and play it, and
I tried to get into it, and I haven't played it back in the day, and I've just found that really tough. So if they are going to make a remake, I'd be very interested in that.
It would have to be very, very different. I mean, obviously you'd keep the story and the same, but in terms of actually how it plays, and actually Mass Effect 1 has this some of this problem, which is it's quite an archaic game now. Even controls, like if you will go try and play Mass Effect 1 now, the controls are terrible. And the actual shooting is awful. Movement
it's a cover
generally
shooter where you can't go into cover.
Yeah, the movement is so bad. But I remember when I first played it, I was so wowed by everything else that I just didn't care. They sorted that out subsequently for 2 and 3, which are much better playing games. But KOTOR has that, like, just feels crap to play. So I always go, I really want to, but then I think, actually it'd be terrible. I'm trying to think, like, what I would like if I'd go back to New Vegas, because I think New Vegas I wouldn't have that big a problem with going back to, actually.
I feel like a lot of the strength for it is in the writing, and the shooting is fine.
I mean, it's Bethesda
it's not
shooting,
brilliant, so. But yeah, like that hasn't changed, I guess. So.
Yeah, facts all the way.
That sounds like Mass Effect, to be quite honest. So it's all about the writing and the characters and the story, not the shootiness.
The shootiness. Okay. We've got a little bit of time, which is good, because I'll bring this up because I think it's definitely worth us flagging as an important story. Emma, you wrote this week about Team Fortress 2, and I think it is worth talking about because of how important the story that you wrote is. Now, you've reported on Team Fortress 2 and its problem with bots in the past, but there was a specific reason why we picked this up again for your report, which is on the site now. What exactly is going on in that game?
Right, so for background, Team Fortress 2 has always kind of had a bit of a problem with bots. I remember when I was playing it in 2013, you'd often get aim bots going around and you'd be like, oh yeah, that's a bot, that sniper's just kind of like walking around in the air and shooting people. But it got really bad last year, around like March time, and there was just this sudden influx and people were saying like, look, this is much worse, like Valve, you need to do something about this, because it was people you know, like along with like the game breaking stuff with hacks, it was like racism, you know, really nasty things, you know, like spamming the chat with that kind of stuff. And Valve did put some measures in place to stop that, like stopping like free accounts from chatting and stuff like that, but it didn't really sort the problem, and it's kind of bubbled around. And then over the last few months, people have noticed that people are kind of offering, like, bots are advertising bot immunity. So you go to another store, which it will link to in the chat and be like, if you pay this amount of money, our bots won't hurt you. It's like, you know, it's like a protection racket in the digital age in Team Fortress 2. But the thing that's really worrying is that some bots are like advertising links to child abuse images, and it's called like CP, which is like short for child porn. And they'll be like, either like, here's a link, go to this website, or they'll be like, go to my Steam profile and comment, and then get you access and prices. And obviously that's completely unacceptable, and you can't let them get away with that in your, you know, game where, like, I don't know, it's just like Valve's kind of let it get to the point where people are using it as a platform to like advertise these services and then connect people. And even if it's not hugely widespread, it seems like those people doing it have done it enough that a lot of people have seen those, because people are reporting it on like Twitter and Reddit. And once I wrote that story, a load of people said like, yeah, no, over the past few months we've seen it, you know, or I've only been playing it for a week and I've seen messages like that. So I think Valve really needs to have another look at it and see if there's anything else they can do.
You would like to think that they would see that and be very proactive in trying to sort it out.
I mean, yeah, it is pretty concerning that you don't
can't think of anything worse in a game.
That is really pretty much the worst it gets, isn't it? Apart from like actively posting that stuff in there. Really grim. Hopefully they do something about it. I mean, they're not the only. It's not the only game ever to have this sort of problem. I know that. But Team Fortress 2 is still a very popular game. It's still riding high on Steam concurrents. And I think that's why people are frustrated about it, because they feel like Valve's just leaving it to make money, but they're not looking after it. You know, they're just kind of left it. And you can't do that, because if you leave a game and a community by itself and don't monitor it or curate it, you just get this kind of nastiness bubbling up.
Yeah, it just descends, doesn't it, into internet cesspool stuff. All right, well, hopefully they do something. Let's wrap it up there with the traditional newscast mug check. I'm going to start this week. I don't think I've ever started this by saying this isn't free advertising. I'm not on commission, but you might have seen I've got a Costa cup, and it's because they're selling coffees for 50p. Well, they were. They're not doing it anymore. So if you're watching this and thinking, "Oh, I'll get mine for 50p," it's too late. But because things have opened up, they've done this promotion where you can get any coffee for 50p.
That's a short-lived deal.
It was just a few days. Yeah.
Wow.
Tuesday to Thursday, I think it was. Yeah, I can say I was there when Costa was selling 50p coffees. So rather than make my own, I just I went to Costa and I got a 50p one. Like everyone, it was very busy. Tom, what you got?
I don't have a Costa coffee because I got one delivered to me yesterday, and it sent me up the wall. I was seeing things during the Nintendo conference. I've got
what did you order? What did you order?
I just don't typically drink coffee.
Did you just order like 4 of them for 50p or something? Might as well.
It's been a long time since I've had coffee shop coffee, so yeah.
That is such the British way, isn't it? Like if there's an opportunity to get something cheaper, you don't just get the thing cheaper. You just get more of it because it's cheaper, and you end up spending more money.
Yeah. I had some friends who were student when I was a student, and they were from abroad, and they were like, English people, like whenever there's an alcohol deal, you don't just save the money and get like half price drink. You get twice as much because you can. And then
yeah, exactly.
And I was like,
and
yeah, we're not very clever, are we? Anyway, Hot Dog Man.
Oh, that's cool.
Work hard, mustard big.
What does it mean?
I have no idea what I'm looking at. Someone is gonna have to help me here.
Is from Life is Strange.
Oh.
He's a little cartoon character that has his own little cartoon in the game and continues to get referenced in all of the Life is Strange games. He's a little mascot for them all. And
Let me see him again.
there he is.
What's his name?
Hot Dog Man.
Hot Dog Man. That's so shit. That is such low effort. What should we call him?
Hot Dog
Man.
He's a man who's a hot dog. He looks like a Fortnite character, but
Yeah,
in-
I
Yes,
didn't
he
think it
does.
was.
Yes, he does. He does.
Oh, careful!
Fun fact.
The skin will appear in the game.
Yeah.
Now. I've got that.
There
Crossover.
there already is a hot dog man Fortnite character because
So-
everything's in Fortnite.
The obvious question is it a hot dog that is it a man like who's literally a hot dog, or is it
Is
a
it
man
suit?
wearing a hot dog outfit?
I think it's a man wearing a hot dog outfit because if you look very closely, you can see in his armpit there's a hole there where he's stuck it through the costume. So canonically, I don't think in Life is Strange, or
Gosh.
even though Life is Strange, that hot dogs are alive.
This reminds me of the discourse around that bunny in Animal Crossing, where people couldn't decide whether Zipper is a real bunny or wearing a suit.
His name's Zipper. Of course, he's got a suit.
The clue is in the name.
But what's underneath the suit? It might be even worse.
Another bunny.
What if it's what if it's literally the same thing?
It's
It's just
Russian doll.
bunnies all the way
Russian doll.
down. Always has been.
Emma, what
Well,
you got?
I heard about the 50p coffee deal and I felt sad because I haven't got that near me, so just pretending.
Ah.
How do you have a Costa cup?
I
Did
think
you
we
I
all
don't
nick
get
know.
it. If someone
Not
gave it
before
to me, it's
lockdown,
like
you nicked that.
Someone
gift.
gave it to me. Named
what a
Mr.
generous gift.
Costa Man.
Costa Man, yeah. Best friends with Hot Dog Man. You nicked that, didn't you, Emma?
No, didn't. I've never done anything bad in my life.
No, that's true. How did you get it then? Can you buy
I think it
them
was a
from
Christmas gift.
Costa?
I think you get them in like little gift things. I don't know.
Christmas gift.
Down.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Emma, but no one's buying that. Like no one bought that. Right, on that bombshell, Emma's a thief. Your parents are
Specifically
watching.
just of
I hope
Costa
your
mugs.
parents are watching, Emma.
Yeah, I've got a whole cupboard of these in the back.
Yeah, that's your little side business, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like selling. Talk about protection rackets. You're selling Costa mugs back to them, otherwise they'll run out.
You know, people miss cafes.
All right. Let's wrap it up there. Thanks very much for that, guys. That was a lot of fun. Tom, for more Fortnite shenanigans, where should people go on Twitter?
It's at Tom Phillips EG.
And Emma, for thievery tips.
Not a thief.
How to steal from coffee shops. Where should people go on Twitter?
At Connie FK.
Excellent. And I'm at WYP100. Thanks very much, guys. Bye.